Hello and welcome to Newsmakers on CHCH Podcasts. I'm your host, Louie Butko, and on today's show, I'm very pleased to be joined by the Mayor of St. Catharines, Mat Siscoe. After serving as a city councillor for 12 years and for a short stint as regional councillor, Siscoe ran for mayor in 2022 and captured more than 70% of the vote en route to a convincing victory. Before being elected mayor, Siscoe served as a high school physics teacher, and when he's not mayoring, he is either serving in his role as a board member for the Niagara Children's Centre or spending time with his wife and 4 children. Mat Siscoe, Mayor Mat Siscoe, I'll let people know, we actually go way back, when I was a young buck reporter in the city of St. Catharines. You were an up-and-coming city councillor, so it's great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Before we get into the things we need to talk about, let's start with the most important thing. The Bills are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. What is your level of confidence in Josh Allen and the Bills against the Steelers on Sunday?
My level of confidence for this game is very high. I got to think, the offense has struggled over the last couple of weeks to get on track. They seem to get on track during the Miami game. The defense is playing at a very high level. I'll tell you, I was more concerned about the defense and Sean McDermott's calling of it. Things have gotten really good. The Bills will be there. James Cook, I just keep saying let James cook, and we're going to be fine. But Kincaid, Steph Diggs had some catches. I have to feel confident things are going in the right direction. And let's be honest, they've been playing playoff games for a month and a half. This is first round of the playoffs. Sure, this is game 7 where they have to win, and so keep going.
Their defense, when you look at how many guys they've missed on defense too, like just the season-ending injuries and the Tre'Davious Whites and the games without Micah Hyde, there's just been so many injuries to that defense that the fact that they've come out of it and they held Miami to 0 points in a must-win, not a must-win game, but a big-win game on Sunday was pretty encouraging.
Well, this is Matt Milano being out. I kept thinking, when that happened, I just sort of assumed the defensively the season might be a little bit over, and to hold that offense, I just Devon A-Chain had some yards, but he just couldn't get it on track. Tua couldn't throw 178. That's, you need your defense playing at that level, and I'm amazed at guys who I would have been hesitant to see coming onto the field to replace guys, and they've stepped up and done the job.
What's your tip for getting through these games though? Because they haven't been easy. None of these Bills games have been easy, right? Even the New England game, you had this idea that maybe it was going to go down the last play. But what's your advice? You've been through stressful times. You've ran mayoral campaigns. You've run provincially. What's your advice to getting through the stress of a Bills game on Sunday?
The stress of getting through the Bills game is be somewhere where you can get up and walk out of the room for 10 minutes. I made this comment to someone yesterday. Sometimes I need to get up and leave and come back and hope that things are better. That's just because otherwise I have a Garmin watch which tells me my heart rate, and I see abnormal heart rate detected way too often during Bills games. It is what it is. Just walk away and come back.
Let's get into the budget, because before we get to the numbers, what you want to present this year, what you did present in terms of what you see for the budget, this is something that's always been really near and dear to you, right? I mean, again, having known you, having worked in St. Catharines as a reporter, you were doing phone town halls pre-COVID to get people. What is it about the budget that you've always felt the need that I got to have my say in this?
Yeah, my first term on council, I served a year on the budget committee, and it was an ad hoc committee at the time. In my second term, I became the budget chair. I carried that through all the way through. Budget is important because ultimately everything stems from where we're putting our dollars, right? Those are our priorities. Those are the services that residents are receiving. And so I wanted to be able to have a say. I've been given a lot of very kind compliments from councillors. Some councillors who don't agree with me on a lot of things, but they'll say that they felt that I have been a good budget chair. I thought when I came into the position as mayor, I'd be stepping away from that role, and I have a lot of respect for Carlos Garcia, the councillor who took over as budget chair. But then the province turned around with the strong mayor legislation, and one of the things they said was, actually, no, the mayor has to be the budget chair and present the budget. So I'm back into that role. It's where we set our priorities, and it's where the rubber hits the road. And this is a conversation I've had with my councillors. We talk about a lot of things, and councillors have very high ideals and everything else. Okay, but then you have to be willing to put your name on the budget line, which is going to fund that ideal. And if you're not willing to take that step, then it's not an ideal. It's not something you actually believe in. And this has been a conversation about this budget year, because some of the changes I've made, or some of the changes I've proposed as a part of my budget, that there's been pushback, and councillors have said, well, we want to do more in the other direction. I said, okay, let's put our names on the amendment and bring it to council. And if council agrees, then that's the direction we're going to go in as a community. But it all boils down to the budget. I think that's why, and I've always had a thing for numbers. I like math. I mean,
a physics teacher,
physics teacher with an engineering degree, like numbers are a place where I'm comfortable. And for whatever reason, a lot of people have been very complimentary. And so I assume I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm going to keep going with it.
Those strong mayor powers that tell you, this is guided from the province, that tell you as the mayor of a big city that you are the one to set the budget. Was that something that they consulted you on? Was that something like that was just kind of thrust upon? Because I went back to June 16th, the day that it was announced, and you said, I really don't see myself using this. Then what is explained, you have to use it as the mayor.
Yeah, so I will tell you, it was it was the evening of June 15th. I think I was sitting at a regional council meeting. I knew I had to go to a big city mayor's meeting at Queen's Park the next day. And I started seeing on Twitter that we were going to be getting strong mayor powers. And all of a sudden, in the group chats amongst the OBCM mayors were like, has anybody else seen this? Did we know about this? Nobody asked. I vaguely understood the legislation because it existed for Toronto and Ottawa, and you read it, but if it doesn't affect you, then you're not going to spend a whole lot. We started diving into it, and on the 16th when I was asked, no, I didn't intend to really need to use those powers. With the budget, it's not a should, it's a shall. The province says you shall present a budget through your office, and so we've done that. I will tell you, and I've had this conversation with a couple other mayors and a couple of councillors actually as well, who had real hesitations. But this process creates more accountability and transparency, and it really forces council and the mayor to take ownership over the budget decisions. And it goes back to that idea about, if you have ideals, well, then you've got to make the amendment that says, well, I want to fund this because this is important to me, my constituents, my community. You can't sort of hide behind, well, staff, come back and tell us what. No. You have to make the decision, and then you have to put your name on it. And I'm a big believer in that. It was one of the things I ran on was we need increased accountability. This budget process, as much as it changes things where the numbers are coming from, it doesn't change the fact that my name is on this. When my council gets through the amendment period, their name is going to be on it. And now we all have to take ownership over the decisions we made, and our residents can call us on that if they have issues with it.
Now, when you sat down and looked at what needs to be done, what jumped out at you as the mayor of the city? 1 year on the job, a little over a year on the job. What stood out to you as the priorities that moving forward, this needs to be addressed now?
Well, I mean, we're seeing across the province, property tax rates are going up. And, we've heard lots in the news the last little while about Southern Ontario municipalities with larger tax increases than what people are used to. St. Catharines went through that. We did that last year, and we had that debate. And the thing that came out of the debate was, when I was able to explain the situation to residents who are upset, and rightly upset, and say, well, these are the priorities. These are the things that have changed post-pandemic. They said, okay, I get it, but we need to have a lens on taxpayer affordability. So staff made their recommendations in November, and then the budget was in my lap to make decisions. I said, okay, we have been hearing consistently, do more with less, find new ways to do things. So the budget, as it was presented, that's what it does. It's, we were able to get what shows up on people's property tax bills. From a city perspective, what shows up is a 0.61% increase from my budget. Now, the regional budget is separate. The regional special levies, the education portion, those are outside of our control. But the city's portion of the property tax bill is only going to add 0.61% to the overall property tax bill. Because we were told the concept of taxpayer affordability has to be the first and foremost. So we made recommendations different from what staff made, and now it's in council's hands, whether they want to see those through. Most of the changes I made, I will say, are completely uncontroversial, and in a few cases, council is probably going to ask to go further than what I've done, but it won't change too much materially. About
2552, these are numbers from your office. About 2552, that's the median home impact, or the 1.49% that you were talking about. One issue that is, I mentioned to you, I had seen an Instagram ad from CUPE.
Yep.
The Forestry, the decision to maybe contract out forestry services for the city. You are the Garden City in St. Catharines,
yep.
And a lot of that is a lot of green spaces. This did get immediate pushback feedback. What have you been hearing in terms of what people don't like about it, what people do like about it?
So I made my budget presentation last night. The community had the opportunity to provide some feedback on what's already gotten out there. CUPE came and they did exactly what they should be doing, defending, public services, and they did a good job. Great presentation. Folks from the community as well. The thing that gets lost sometimes is, we contract out most of our forestry work. Like when it comes to tree planting, that's contracted out. When it comes to the stumping, when we're taking stumps out of the ground, that's contracted out. When it comes to tree removals, 60% of that is already contracted out. What I've proposed is to take that last 40% and contract that out as well. There's going to be a debate now at council. Again, like the big push from residents was do more with less. Well, we can maintain our service levels and decrease the cost by doing this. It was announced last night. One of the councillors said, I'm bringing an amendment to not contract out, to keep it in-house. So we would lose those savings. It's about $465,000. And the tax increase would increase by whatever that marginal amount would be. That's a decision from a philosophical standpoint. That's a decision council has to make. There was a lot of talk last night about trees and the importance of the urban tree forestry and canopy and how we need to maintain it. And a lot of people talked about that needs to be brought back in-house. Well, that's going to have further increases. Again, if that's the philosophical direction the council wants to go, I respect that, if that's what their constituents are telling them they want. But you can't turn around and say, well, listen, we want to do more with less and do things differently. And when I bring forward a proposal to do things differently and do more with less, then say, well, no, but not like that. Yeah. One of my biggest frustrations, and this is longstanding, is like a lot of times council wants, and I've been a party to this. I'll fall on my sword. I've had this opinion, but it's, as my time as budget chair has changed my impression. You can't demand lower taxes, but still want to be adding to the services. Like that's just not how it works. And, if the community wants lower taxes, I encourage everybody, reach out to your councillors and say that. If you're willing to, pay a little bit more to maintain or enhance services, reach out to your councillors and say that. At the end of the day, this budget is going to reflect what the overall feeling is from the community towards council. Yeah.
And this is the first of, you've now started a new multi-year budget process as well. So this 2024, you're not just thinking 2024, you're thinking beyond that right through 2026?
Yeah. And so this year, the city levy increase of 1.49%. I think it's slated in the low threes for next year and the year after. Obviously, the region is a completely separate beast, and it's a lot of numbers. And I always try to drill it back to what's your property tax bill going to change? And that's where the 0.61 comes from, right? People get a property tax bill. It's a total amount of money. 1 year it goes up. Yeah. The city's portion of that going up this year is 0.61% if the budget stays the way it is. If council decides to make changes, then that number is going to change.
You mentioned the region. That was in the headlines this week as well. There was a governance review meeting yesterday at the Holiday Inn. People from the province coming in, various stakeholders making their cases. Mayors, whether it was the mayor of Pelham, Diodati, I believe you spoke as well.
I did.
This governance review, and again, as somebody who's been working in news in Niagara for the better half of 10 years, like I've been hearing about this for decades. Are you not just sick of discussing this? Like Hamilton amalgamation, City of Toronto amalgamation, like that, we're talking 20, 30 years ago. Like if the province is going to make a decision, shouldn't they just make one?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've been doing this is my 14th year as an elected official at the local level. We've had this debate now 5 times. Changes to governance. We need to do this. We need to do that. 1 city, 4 city, dual role councillors. We've been through the gamut. I've said, this conversation sucks the oxygen out of any room where it's being had, and now you can't talk about anything else. St. Catharines, Niagara, we have real structural issues that we need to deal with. If a change is going to happen, I've said for a long time, it's going to have to come from the province because there's too many people with too many opinions in Niagara for us to ever settle on one. You'll never get that. So the province has to look at it and decide what's the most reasonable outcome. And I've been very honest with people. I'm a 4-city proponent. And what I've said is this: if you were to take the map of Niagara, you get rid of all the lines, and then you bring someone in who has no idea about where these little towns and cities and whatever were, and you just show them the map and you show them where the population is concentrated and where the economic activity is concentrated, they would land on a 4-city model. Like, that's how they would look at it. They go, well, I said yesterday, I think that's where most people would assume it was, because we're very clearly organized, where there's 3 clear urban centers with suburbia around them, and then separated by rural. And then there's a very large rural area to the west that could be its own rural municipality. If that's what makes the most sense now and is going to make the most sense in the near to medium term, well, then we should be altering our governance model. And people get caught up in this idea of amalgamations. But, I mean, the municipalities that exist now are because of amalgamations. Heck, you're from St. Catharines. Talk to someone from Meriton or Port Dalhousie and ask them, like those smaller groupings that, have this community spirit. If that community spirit exists, it's not going away. That's the fundamental reality, is you can maintain the community spirit within a better running system. And right now, the driving force in Ontario is build more homes. I identified, during the conversation at the standing committee, the structural barriers that exist because of this 2-tier system that make it harder for us to get more homes built. So if we're addressing those, ultimately, that's a good thing for the community. But regardless, if the province came back and said status quo, well, then we accept that. If they come back and say 4 cities, we accept that. If it's 1 city, we accept that. But we got to get on with the other business.
The province flip-flopped on their decision to dissolve Peel. I mean, do you trust them at this point to make the best decision for Niagara residents, for St. Catharines residents?
I do. I think, what was going on in Peel, and I don't think that process is over either. I think if the province goes through the standing committee process, and they're doing their due diligence, they're going through that, a report's written, the recommendation that the province acts on it, yeah, I do. I think that they're going to move forward with it. In the case of Peel, there may have been a desire to take action before all of the information was gathered. I still think there's going to wind up being structural changes in all of the regions, because I think there's a recognition that the way the system was designed in 1970 does not fit the 2024 world as well as it should. So structural changes need to be made. The province has already devolved planning authority down. That was the right call. I have a housing pledge in St. Catharines. Niagara Falls and Welland do as well. Niagara Region has no housing pledge. So I need the planners who are helping us to get that housing built viewing all of those applications through the lens of, hey, we have a housing pledge. We need to meet this 11,000 unit goal. How can we make that happen with this application, that application? You need a couple of other pieces, at the very least, move down to the local area municipalities, because otherwise we can't do our jobs.
I want to talk about downtown, because there's a lot of good things happening in downtown. And again, you and I were talking about the arrival of the Performing Arts Center, the arrival of the Meridian Center, the conversion of one-way streets downtown, even something as small as that, revitalizing what for a very long time in downtown St. Catharines was nothing. It was dark. It was after 7 p.m., not much going on. I think you on council deserve a lot of credit. Walter Senzik, your councillors that were on the council before. But where do we go from here? Because you have a new development that's going to house thousands, built by the parking garage there on Carlisle. You want to revitalize St. James Street, with the town hall sort of setup, town square. Is downtown ready for this influx of people who are about to come? I've tried to leave Geneva at 4:30. You drive down Geneva at 4:30, and this is very specific. Ontario Street, it's hard to get in and out of downtown as it is. Is the downtown ready for this influx of residents?
So it's funny you mentioned, the difficulty. This is one of the areas where I've said we need more control, is over the entire transportation network. And you just mentioned,
Geneva and Westchester. It's just
regional roads and how they interface with city roads. It's a bit of a gong show. I will say, I think downtown is ready. We are seeing an influx of residential, which is phenomenal. The city made, along with the province and the federal government, some big investments over the last 15 years. You've got the Burgoyne Bridge, you've got the Meridian Center, you've got the First Ontario Performing Arts Center, you've got the Carlisle Street Parking Garage.
Brock University.
Brock University with the Marilyn I. Walker School of Fine and Performing Arts. All of those investments are important. The idea was to spur private investment. We're seeing that private investment now. Nick Adelick and what he's building on Carlisle is a gorgeous building. It's going to be fantastic. We have proposals for the Rock Pile and for Queen Street and for James Street. And now we're looking at the idea of the Civic Square. All of those pieces are starting to fit together. But there are issues in the downtown, and this is another one of those structural issues with the regional level of government where we need help, and I need to keep people focused. I'm existing within the system that exists now, right? We've got a regional level of government. They're in charge of community services, so anything related to the homelessness, we have to work with the region. They're building a temporary shelter now. That's good. I've been very clear. We need more of that. Yeah. Our point in time counts keep showing an increase in homelessness. Now, this isn't unique to St. Catharines or Niagara. This is happening across North America. But that doesn't change the fact that we have more and more people that are trying to live in our parks and in the ravines and by the creek. And, that homelessness problem and those encampments are spreading out from the core. They're not staying in the downtown anymore. You're seeing them in parts of the city that have never seen it before. That speaks to a need that the regional level of government, in conjunction with the province, need to fill. And if they don't, we're not going to be able to build a community where people want to complete these projects and people want to move to. The downtown had a lot of momentum, leading up to the pandemic. And I was the downtown councillor, I saw it on the ground. I appreciate the compliment. It was all of council and, going back to Mayor McMullen and Mayor Rigby, putting in place the foundation for that revitalization. The pandemic laid bare a lot of things across North America, specifically with respect to homelessness and with opioids and with mental health. And I don't believe that the levels of government that deal with those issues, the region, but also the province and the feds, I don't think they've caught up to the new reality post-pandemic. And so we need to see more investment from them, and we need to see more energy put towards dealing with the mental health crisis that exists, dealing with the opioid epidemic, which is killing a lot of people, across Ontario, across North America. We're going to keep moving forward at the city level. And my council has been very clear. They're going to keep advocating. We're going to keep advocating at the regional, the provincial, the federal level. We need more help. We're starting to see that, when it comes to housing, the feds have their Housing Accelerator Fund, and we've made application to that. We're confident that our application makes sense for how to get housing built in St. Catharines. I've had good conversations with Minister Calandra at Municipal Affairs and Housing at the provincial level. They've been good partners with us, and I think they're going to continue to be. And the truth is, dealing with the governance review and that conversation with the standing committee, members of the opposition, whether they NDP or Liberal, members of the government, the Tories, they all share the same view. Yes, housing has to be the priority. So we all seem to understand what we need to get done. Now we need those upper levels to help us get it done.
But I feel like you're just summing up, politics, basically, right? Because I'm not going to reach out, if my car's broken into, am I going to call Chris Biddle? Is that what I should be doing, right? Should I be calling Jenny Stevens? You're the most direct person. You represent the city of St. Catharines. And for someone to hear, I need more help. Okay, where do we go? How do we get more help? So what's your message to St. Catharines residents who may not feel safe downtown right now?
So I would say, first and foremost, if your car gets broken into, call the cops first, because the NRP is going to be able to handle that most directly.
Yeah.
But if you want to express the frustration, no, that's what my office is for. And this was a message I got out there during the election campaign. Talk to the mayor. I'm having these conversations. Talk to your councillors who can talk to the mayor. We recognize that we're the most directly accessible level of government, and we need to continue to be. And we can have the conversations with those upper levels of government. But don't forget that a lot of these issues, as much as, yes, I want you to talk to me and tell me what they are, in some cases, I don't have the capacity, the power, the money to be able to deal with them. They are done by other levels of government. To your point, you wouldn't call Chris Biddle about the pothole on your street, but expecting me to be able to fix, the homelessness crisis, which is a North America-wide problem, I'm going to continue to advocate. And I have those conversations on a daily basis. It's my phone calls, it's my meetings with residents talking about these issues. But I make sure people understand, if for us, St. Catharines, to fix the homelessness problem on our own, we can't afford that, and it's a stat which always kind of blows people's minds. For every dollar you spend in taxes, if you're a resident of St. Catharines, 4 cents comes to the city. The other 96 cents, 4 cents goes to the region, and the other 92 then goes to the province and the feds. They have the ability, and there's this old Hazel McCallion quote that gets pulled out all the time. The feds have the money, the province has the power, the cities have the problems. And so we will continue to advocate. I don't want anybody to perceive that as me trying to push it off on other people. We're the front line, so we have to advocate. That's why I want residents to come to their councillors and come to the mayor. Like, we want that information because then we can bring it to our colleagues and say, listen, these are the problems we're facing, and we can't put this on the property tax base. And that's the same whether you're in Burlington or Hamilton or St. Catharines or Niagara Falls or London or Ottawa. We're all facing the same issues. This is why organizations like Big City Mayors in Ontario are really important for our residents, because we can go with a much more united voice on these problems that are existing in every municipality and say, hey, province, hey, feds, you need to help because this isn't getting better. And that's because of a lot of issues that have been created through your levels of government and that only your levels of government have the capacity to fix.
All right. What are you optimistic about in this new year? Let's turn the page here. 2024. You got this. Once you get this budget through this budget, what's a reason that you're optimistic as mayor of St. Catharines, but also as a citizen of Canada? What are you optimistic about this year?
Okay, let me start with St. Catharines and then I'll go on to Canada. I actually have a lot of optimism about this year. I mentioned that we made application to the Housing Accelerator Fund. We're confident that at some point the feds are going to come through with that. We've had good conversations with the province. We need to get those housing units start to get built, and the next year looks really positive. We've had the conversations with developers who've gone through the process. They've gotten their plans through and are ready to build. We know that those are going to start accelerating over the next couple of months. So I'm excited on the housing front because I think we're making big strides there. I do believe we're making some strides when it comes to dealing with some of the social issues. So I'm very positive about that. I think St. Catharines has gone through a difficult time like many other municipalities over the course of COVID, and we're coming out now. I'm looking at my schedule fill up with new businesses that are opening and with anniversaries of businesses that have been around 5, 10, however many years. The business community is rebounding from very difficult years. This is one of those areas, where the federal government specifically needs to make sure they've got their eye on the issues that small businesses face because, loans getting called in, that could cause real difficult problems. But I think we can weather that. If the feds come along with us, we can help small business weather that storm. And like I said, the openings that are coming, I'm very confident that the business community in St. Catharines and in Niagara is rebounding from the difficulties of the last few years.
Mayor Siscoe, I appreciate you making the time today.
Always.
Thank you. My thanks to Mayor Siscoe for joining me today, and my thanks to you as well for joining us here on Newsmakers on CHCH Podcasts. Remember, if you've missed any episodes of this show or any other shows on CHCH Podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. That includes a brand new conversation with the leader of the NDP, Marit Stiles. That's available now on Newsmakers, and next week you'll be able to catch my conversations with Bonnie Crombie and Mike Schreiner as well. And as mentioned, Doug Ford, the invitation's still there, Premier, if you'd like to join me as well. But thank you for joining me. Thanks to Mike Corson for directing today's show. And from all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great day.